All right, we're live. I'm really excited to be here today with Desai. She's one of our account executives at Otter PR and has her master's in communication and really is an expert at all kind of media relations. She's gotten thousands of top tier features for her clients and written several hundred press releases. And so today we're going to cover what is a press release. Chan, excited to talk with you about this. Kind of talk me through what a press release is and why we would use one.
Yeah, I'm excited too. Thanks for having me. So a press release is basically an official document that is released to the media on a grand scale. So it goes out to hundreds of outlets, and it's basically an announcement for anything really in an organization, whether it's a new hire, website launch. You can really use it across the board. They're super helpful tools in kind of just getting your message out there on a grand scale, and they can actually get you a lot more media interest if it's something creative and innovative.
Awesome. So what would you typically use a press release for? I know grand openings is one, but I know sometimes you don't want to use a press release. Walk me through your decision making when you're actually going to use that.
Yeah, so it really just depends on the organizational needs, right? So if you kind of want to make a big hurrah about a new hire, if it's someone super credible that you kind of want to put out there as a member of your team, that would be a great opportunity to do so. If you're dealing with celebrities, sometimes new music releases, for example, that's a lot of clients that I have are in that industry. So album releases, if they're doing something philanthropic with their organization, things like that, that just kind of make you look good in the media, but also are impactful. Typically, you don't want to do a pitch about something that's just not that exciting. So if you just want to get it out there, have a place to guide people like, hey, we have this event, purchase tickets here, this is where it's happening. Those are really good opportunities to kind of have it out there without flooding too many inboxes and getting blacklisted.
What information would you include in a press release to make it more impactful to help kind of get that chance of being picked up by the media?
Yeah, so quotes are kind of my big hitter. If you can get a quote from someone super credible, that's always the best. I like to include 2 or 3, so you're kind of saying, hey, this is what it is, and then you have a person also coming in talking to you about why they're so excited about something, and then that really helps with the media too.
What can a client expect from a press release? What do those results look like? And how do you build that into a campaign?
Yeah, so I think press releases are an essential component of any campaign, right? If something exciting is going on with your work or your organization, whatever you might be seeking PR for, never miss an opportunity to do a release. It's, like I said before, it's one place where you can send pretty much your entire target audience and let them know what you're doing and what you have going on. They also get syndicated on a ton of different platforms, right? So if you're in tech, you can get that published to MarketWatch or Benzinga, and that's really big for you because those publications are typically a little bit harder to get into, but just kind of having a release on those websites, it's a lot of social credibility for you as well. And then because you have the media contact section at the bottom, if it's something super exciting, like with a celebrity or government related topics, you can kind of have those people reach out to you for interviews, and that's where we've actually seen a lot of influx of top tier successes from those releases.
So do you see kind of clients getting better SEO out of it? Is a press release alone enough? Do you do pitches after the press release? Kind of what's that look like for a campaign?
Yeah, so for a typical campaign, you would definitely do a pitch right after the press release is out. We always append it in the pitch. So, hey, check out the press release here for this event. Creates a lot more rapport with whoever you're pitching to in the media because journalists, they hate clicking links that are irrelevant. So if you're like, hey, check out this website, they might not necessarily be inclined to doing so. But if there's a release, it kind of shows them that there's some credibility backing it. And it also just gives them all the info in one place. Media is really competitive, so you have to kind of stay on top of being in touch with them and, giving them exactly what they need and no fluff. In terms of SEO, it's great SEO. Like I said, hundreds of different pickups if your client's keywords are in there, which is something we always do at Otter in the onboarding process. It's really, really going to help them show up on that first page of Google, which is one of our biggest goals always.
Okay, awesome. And I know you mentioned kind of at the end of a press release, you have a specific section of the contact. Is that usually kind of what does that look like and why do you include that?
Yeah, so we like to include the publicist's name, email, and phone number. Phone number is actually really crucial with top tiers, especially if it's breaking news, because for political clients, for example, that I've worked with, they don't have the time to email you and say, hey, we need to talk to this guy because tons of other reporters are doing the exact same thing. So it's really important to kind of have your business phone number there so they can give you a call. I've seen this mostly with like Forbes, Washington Post, those big hitters that we really want. They don't have time and they have editors that are super demanding. So you have to, it's really all about meeting their needs.
Awesome. Can you kind of walk me through, I know some press releases are super successful where you'll get hundreds of top tier hits and it'll go viral, and other ones do nothing. Can you talk me through both a case study of something that you realize you probably shouldn't have done a press release, or the client asked you to and you didn't think it was a good fit, and then also when it is very successful?
Yeah, we can kind of start with when it's really successful. High profile is always kind of, the big hitters. That's where we see that big influx.
Like name brand, Apple, kind of.
Right. For example, we had a company who had a kid's toy, and it was an immersive toy, so it was a cube, and it kind of projects out 3D holograms. They got endorsed by Apple, and they were actually on their newsletter. So that is something that we, as soon as they let us know, they were like, no big deal, just use it in your pitches. Me and the publicist on the account immediately were like, big deal, press release. And that got us, it helped us get them into a lot more gift guides that they wanted, because that was their goal, top tier gift guides in the tech space. We were able to land them in big publications like MSN, Yahoo, things like that, just because of the release, because they were like, oh, Apple newsletter, this is definitely someone who we want to talk to. So that is an example of a high profile one. I wouldn't necessarily say least successful. It's just, it's who's picking them up, right?
Yeah, so, less impact.
When we get top tier wins for clients, sometimes we like to do press releases about that, because if they are a small business, it can be beneficial to say, hey, Forbes just covered this smaller company and this is why you should care. Those are not necessarily less impactful, but sometimes we just don't see any direct ROI from them, but really it just helps the client and helps people know, like, we're talking about them, you're going to see more about them, and then in the future, so I guess it's more long-term, kind of helps you out in that front.
Yeah, so if you got someone a Forbes feature and you kind of wrote about that Forbes feature as a release, getting people excited, that's not actually going to get picked up again. But what it did was it redocumented. So I know when Otter gets awards, typically we'll do a press release, we'll make sure that a journalist picks it up, and we'll do a blog about it. And part of that is we're trying to capture the SEO behind it. And so it's the same thing with your clients, is you want to make sure that as they actually get these publications and these features, that they're being more visible, because one article in Forbes might get 5,000 views, 10,000 views, but then if you include a press release and a blog and get some more coverage on it, you now kind of triple the amount of views. Especially, I think it's great on blogs too.
Exactly.
And you can link to that press release, because then people have more credibility, and it's searchable when you're searching like Otter PR, top whatever. All those things will pop up.
Yeah.
And usually our blog beats out the SEO of these other sites.
Yeah, exactly. That's the biggest thing, right? Just getting it out there, because one of the biggest challenges, and I think you can agree with media relations or PR as a whole, is like, what is really the impact and what's the ROI? And that's a question pretty much every single one of my clients has asked me, and I'm like, you play just as big of a part in this as we do, and I think press releases are an essential component of getting the word out there more. It's more, complementary to the pitching and everything else that we're doing, rather than a supplement, right? Like, we want to make sure that everything is integrated. It's really all about integrated communication and making sure that we're maximizing everything that we're doing and capitalizing off of small wins and making them bigger wins.
Okay, awesome. So we've kind of covered what a press release is, and then what should be in it, and then kind of what those results could be. But now, how do I actually, create that press release and get it published? What softwares are you using? What tools are you using? What's your strategy there?
It really just depends on your industry. Some softwares won't allow certain topics. So PR Newswire, for example, is one of the most popular ones, but sometimes you can't have controversial topics on there. So to kind of replace that, we have EIN Newswire, so lots of cannabis, things like that are just a little bit more untraditional in the media, can go on there. If you're talking about public releases, you might have to do individual lists and cater them to those people specifically, because you want it on a grand scale. So it kind of just depends on what you're looking to do and essentially who you are in your industry as well.
Cool. So I know that like you said, there's different criteria. So some press releases won't let you write about certain things. Political, publicly traded companies can't go public on different releases. What is kind of one of your favorite or most common uses? And then I guess, is there a huge difference between using these tools? Because I know some press releases are $30, some press releases are $2,000, $3,000. And in my experience, I haven't seen a major difference, because if it's targeted properly,
right,
it doesn't matter. But what is your experience there, and kind of what do you prefer on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, on a day-to-day, I would definitely, say PR Newswire. It's kind of my go-to, and they will kind of help you through the process as well. So they do a lot of fact-checking on their end, and it's a pretty straightforward process to upload and get things live. If you do have something controversial, I love EIN, just because they will kind of work with you to see, how we can best get this out there despite the nature of the release. In terms of, going public and public announcements, those are our most tricky ones, just because you really have to be careful with the compliance aspect of it. So just, really knowing your area and cost. The cost, like you said, really doesn't matter as long as it's targeted correctly, because, you can submit a really great release, but if it's not going to the people that you want it to go to, and if you're not selecting the right categories or even the right release time sometimes makes a big difference too. It can make a big difference of the day you submit it, things like that.
So you talked about compliance. What is kind of that standard approval process for you? What do you go through? So I know our team writes, usually they'll get an outline, they'll write it, but then what do you have to do with getting it approved by the client, getting it approved by the outlets, fact checking? What do you do there to make sure that, these are public information? So what do you do to make sure it's accurate?
Yeah, so my first thing is always fact checking. Make sure that what the client gave me is correct. Everyone's busy. Sometimes we all make mistakes. I always cross-check websites, make sure that if we're dealing with multiple dates, those are all correct. And then in terms of submitting it, it can't be promotional at all. So even if you're announcing something that's, of a promotional nature, you really just have to make sure that there's value to the media. You always have to remember that all publications just care about the value add to the reader, solving a problem. What are you doing differently? Nobody wants to read the same things over and over again. So that is one of the biggest challenges, especially when communicating that to clients. You have to just let them know, we have your best interest at heart, but this is not going to get accepted. And that is just the nature of the business with PR. You have to be really transparent and have a foundation of trust on both ends. So that is that. And then once you submit it, they have their own process. Again, they're checking for facts, being too promotional, things like that usually get dinged and they'll let us know. So those are really the things that they look out for the most.
What are a couple examples of kind of the most impactful press releases, like when to do them? So grand openings, new products, new hires. When do you see the biggest ROI for those clients, the most pickups? Like give us 4 or 5 ideas of when we really should do those press releases.
Yeah, so I would definitely say the biggest are when someone wins something, getting an award. For example, we had Mary Peltola. She was the Congresswoman of Alaska while she was working with Otter. That's a huge release, right? We want to get that out there. And then those are kind of the most successful in terms of getting a bunch of calls of media interest. We saw so many different ones, fashion publications, what she's wearing, but then also kind of like on the law side of things, like what is she doing? What's making a difference? I personally love it when there's a new hire and clients want to do a release, because we always talk about ROI. So what are you going to do to keep that person, right? Are we keeping them happy, making sure they're appreciated? There's a lot of moving parts, and PR can really help you with your business goals too. So that is a really good one. Awards are always really big too. If you win something, put it out there. Why would you not do that? And why would you not want people to know? So if you are a smaller person trying to break into a really saturated market, for example, we have had a bedding client and there was tons of scandals in the media on Egyptian cotton, and it's something that really sounds mundane, but we sleep on sheets every day and people want to know these things. So if you have a new collection dropping or something that really just separates you from your competitors in a saturated market, a press release can really help on a grand scale, because even if you're smaller, if someone looks you up and then they click the news tab and there's hundreds of different things, that's really going to help you out and it's going to help you build your brand.
Awesome, Shanna. It's great having you here. Before we jump off, any advice on kind of creating that press release or any just strategy that you recommend to anyone?
Yeah, definitely. Keep it short and sweet. You don't want to go over 400 words. That's kind of the standard, because, again, you will lose people. They don't want to read too many things that are really long. If you can bold things, bold them. So about section, where is it happening? Who, what, where, when, why. Always cover those. Make sure your headline is super catchy. If you need to spend the most time on the headline, definitely do that. Drop names, drop companies. People care about those types of things. They don't want to just say, this person did this. Like, why is it impactful? Put numbers, statistics, make sure those quotes are impactful and come from credible people, and I can guarantee you that your press release will be picked up and really successful.
Perfect. Thank you so much for coming in today. If you guys want to reach out to OtterPR, work with Chan, or more of our team, just go to OtterPR.com and hit contact us. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.